Yes. But let me explain. Psycho Patrol R is a video game released by ConsumerSoftProducts that looks like this. Psycho Patrol R had a good amount of hype leading up to its release due to ConsumerSoftProducts' previous release, Cruelty Squad, which reached cult classic status due to its irreverent humor and looking like this. While Cruelty Squad is about shadowy political assassinations, Psycho Patrol R follows the adventures of an unnamed police officer in the Psycho Patrol division of the European Federal Police, an authoritarian police force that is losing their grip on the continent of Pan-Europa. Obviously, a big appeal to both of these games is the unique visual style, although Psycho Patrol R has a much more realistic, if you could call it that, art style than a lot of Cruelty Squad's abstract levels. I think they both scratch that early CGI, retro CGI look that seems to be kind of going through a renaissance right now. But I think Cruelty Squad, which was released in like 2021, is partially to do for that visual style having a bit of a resurgence. I don't want to spend the whole video comparing the two games because they do have a lot of differences alongside their commonalities, but there are enough people complaining that Psycho Patrol isn't the exact same game as Cruelty Squad that I'm kind of just going to leave it there. One thing they both have in common is that they are fucking hilarious. The dry, absurd, often anti-consumer and anti-everything tone that ConsumerSoftProducts takes in their entire brand is very commendable and definitely one of the game's stronger points, more so for Psycho Patrol since it is a lot more dialogue-based than Cruelty Squad. While Cruelty Squad has a level-based system that'll have you completing objectives, usually assassinations, on a per-level basis, Psycho Patrol operates on an open-world system where you'll walk around on foot or fast travel to multiple different hub worlds, solving cases or quests that range from finding a lost dog to uncovering a conspiracy behind a cancer-causing skincare product. So, like, all skincare products. The open worldness and some of the map structure is where some of my complaints come into play, and it's here where we're again going to ask the question of, is Psycho Patrol R worth the $40? I think so, yes, but I think you absolutely need to know what you're getting into, and for that I'm going to use an analogy here. If games were dogs, most games would fall into the category of like a golden retriever. Thinking of games like Schedule 1 or Marvel Rivals, games that can be looked at a glance and understood, played with and enjoyed with almost no prior knowledge of the genre. These games are like a fluffy golden retriever that's made out of sunflowers and rainbows, and they're going to crawl up next to your feet when you go to bed and wake you up in the morning with sweet puppy kisses. Psycho Patrol R is a timberwolf that's looking into your house through your bedroom window and wants to fucking kill you and your dogs and your whole family. I've heard Psycho Patrol R described as an anti-game, which I would say is kind of a fair statement, where other games like really want you to progress and experience what they have to have. Psycho Patrol R is almost like the complete opposite. The game does not want you to progress easily. It wants you to get pissed off and scratch your head and put on your thinking cap in order to progress, which is, it's frustrating, but it's almost refreshing in the modern age of immediate gratification or like a 3-hour long tutorial. As frustrating as getting insta-gibbed like 25 times in Psycho Patrol R can be to progress, it does make that little inch forward feel very much more earned. It makes it feel very satisfying. But that being said, getting insta-gibbed 25 times and not progressing at all is very frustrating. It sucks. It fucking sucks. While the gaming industry is no stranger to difficult open-world games, I feel like Psycho Patrol R's inclination to stomp on your balls every time you go into some of these areas it kind of makes progression feel like a slog. To me, I was choosing what areas I was going into and wasn't going into based on what screen, what would have me staring at this screen for the least amount of time. The difficulty spike in certain areas can feel downright hostile, which I'm almost certain is an intentional design choice by the dev, which I'm going to get into in a minute. One thing I haven't really mentioned about Psycho Patrol R thus far is that it is an early access game, which can make pointing out like a lot of shortcomings or flaws in the game difficult, since it's hard to discern what's finished and what's not. Going back to the very hostile level design I was talking about earlier, the Bridge of the Sovereign is an area that I haven't been able to get past myself, mostly because I kept trying to run in with my mech and kept getting destroyed by the other mechs when I first started playing the game. Bridge of the Sovereign is one of the first areas in the game. It's genuinely the first right out of the tutorial area. So I was playing this game like a day or two after release, just trying to explore, and I was just wondering how you actually get past this level, and There was nothing on the internet to help me besides like maybe one Steam community post and a post by the developer on Twitter, which was this. No good. Which, to be fair, is really fucking funny, but it doesn't exactly feel great to shell out $40 for an open world game that you want to progress in, only to find that the developer is on Twitter basically saying the game is broken and it's your fault if you can't get past this purposely difficult early game wall, basically. Which is very on brand for consumer soft products. If you scroll further down, you can find more sincere tweets like this one, which says, you can continue huffing and puffing about how hard the game is, you can change your approach, or you can quit playing. The last two options are probably better in the long run. This game is not going to be made easier just because you want that. Which is it's a very respectable statement. This kind of seems like a generalized blanket statement, kind of addressing a lot of the issues with the game that were being pointed out among release. In the comments or some of the tweet replies, the dev does concede that there are balance issues, but dying quickly when you play the game like Cruelty Squad is not one of them, which is, you know, fair. ConsumerSoft's social media posts are really fucking funny, honestly. For a studio that produces like a lot of work with anti-capitalist themes, they really do have the unhinged social media branding on point. Wendy's wishes they could make tweets like, in Psycho Patrol R, you will be able to kill yourself. And Psycho Patrol R is very much like Bubsy 3D, infinite replay value, infinite fun. It is impossible to calculate its value. It will crash the video game industry in 2026. As well as, I have to make sure you all understand that Psycho Patrol R is a punishment, not a video game. Even the blurb on their website about Psycho Patrol R being in dev hell is really, really funny. I'm going to put it on screen, and I'm not going to read all of it, but feel free to pause it and read your eyes on it, because it is definitely 100% real and genuinely worth a read. To bring this segment back on track, I just want to reiterate that getting your balls stomped on every time you explore isn't exactly my definition of fun, but it is an intended game design choice to force you to change your approach or to come back later. Unfortunately, like I said, this game is in early access, so it can be difficult to tell whether some of this stuff is intentional or whether it's just unfinished, because there's a lot of stuff in this game that, make no mistake, it is definitely unfinished. There was multiple times where I would fall into like a meaningless pit or a body of water, and with no rappel or rope gun or mech jump in that point in the game, I was pretty much just fucked. I had to reload a save, which felt awful. Like, oh no, I fell into a hole while trying to explore, and I lost like 20 minutes of progress while trying to explore the game. There's no like deep game design theory in that. That's just learned self-helplessness through video games. Like, there's no amount of David Goggins level masochism that could excuse like that for me. Another unfinished part of the game is the story. There's about 20 cases, quests, cases, whatever you want to call them. There's about 20 of them that you can complete. SLS Panic, the skincare conspiracy quest, is the main story quest, although this is not the entire main story quest, and it's just the first of many main story quests, from what I've heard. So, like I did mention, this game is very dialogue heavy. You're going to be expected to read a lot. You're going to be talking to a lot of different characters. There is a database to keep track of all the characters, which is a godsend, because it also allows you to mark people in the system so that you can find them later, which without a map in this game, this is very useful. Very, very nice to have. The cases, like I said, writing in this game is amazing, so the cases are very interesting, very funny. I think of the time of me like making this video, I've finished about 5 or 6. I haven't finished SLS Panic main story quest yet, because I'm still trying to figure out a way to beat it without just Googling an answer. No spoilers, don't want to spoil anything for that quest. I don't want to look up a wiki, so I've just been trying to figure out how to do a lot of stuff on my own, which is another issue I have with this game, more so difficult games in general, but that is where, it's where you put players in a scenario where they don't know how to progress. 80% of the time, they're just going to fucking Google what to do. Which is, you know, it's fair. It's just the reality of the time we live in. But I feel like that's where good game design comes in, where Good game design is where you're going to be given an obstacle, but also be presented the available options so that external solutions like Google don't feel like a necessary requirement to progress. But I'm no fucking game design. I'm just a streamer. I'm like the lowest. I'm like the bottom rung of society. So take that with a grain of salt. At the moment, to me, it feels like Psycho Patrol R lacks a lot of the indicators that will tell you what to do and point players where to go so that they don't have to run to a search engine. And I'm aware that this is by design. The game is obtuse by design, but it doesn't make it any less painful to have your balls stomped on if somebody is explaining the artistic implications as they're doing it, in my opinion. Like I said, bottom rung of society. Like, for example, on the Permit Peril quest, where you've got to find Bridget's lost rifle permit, I had picked up the permit from HQ Basement and brought it back to her, and I was confused by the lack of dialogue options. I kind of assumed the quest was bugged until I later found out that instead of bringing the permit back to the case giver, you had to go to the permit lady in HQ and hand it to her and then go talk to Bridget, who would then complete the quest and make all the security in Gaia non-hostile to you. To me, I feel like a dialogue option for Bridget where she tells you to take her permit back to the permit lady would have been very useful, and it wouldn't have required me to use Google to progress when I was stuck. And then I even could have left the area and came back if there was like an engine quirk where I needed to do that so that the guards wouldn't be hostile anymore or something like that. And I kind of had like a similar issue with the Lost Dog side quest, where in one of the apartment buildings, there's a guy who'll give you a quest to find his lost dog. You can find the dog in the same hub world, hanging out with Silver, this paramilitary type character, who tells you that the dog showed signs of being abused and it probably ran away, so he's not going to give it back. So obviously I was ready to blow Guy A's head off, but I didn't know if that would end the quest or not, since the game wasn't giving me a lot of direction, and the game advises you against killing essential NPCs that might be important later. So I googled it, and I found out that at this point you are just supposed to shoot whoever you want to side with in the quest. So that was frustrating for me, to not know how to finish the quest and then have to Google it only to find out like, oh, I should have just blasted this guy away. And maybe the game could do a better job of explaining that. Or maybe just tell me to blast away whoever I agree with, because it didn't feel like a great solution to me, especially with the express warning against just murking NPCs for no reason. On the topic of cash rewards, the cash rewards are pretty important because they're basically the lion's share of purchasing a few upgrades, usually giving you like 5k or 10k for finishing a case compared to like the $50 that killing a few enemies will drop. Upgrades are pretty much genuinely necessary. It wouldn't be a big issue, but upgrades are pretty much genuinely necessary to advance in this game because of the difficulty. So it can feel pretty frustrating not knowing how to finish a quest, or just having to grind for upgrades so that you can progress or try and finish a quest or get more quests. I'm calling them quests. I should be calling them fucking cases. I'm sorry. There's genuinely like so much shit to cover in this game. It's hard to know what to mention and what to not mention. If there's anything that anyone watching this found in your playthrough that I didn't mention, please comment down below. Because I think discovering stuff by word of mouth in this game, instead of just Googling it, is a lot more charming. It kind of reminds me of like old school gaming forums, which I feel could be intentional, maybe by design. There's like I said, there's a lot of stuff I didn't even mention. I didn't even mention that there's enemies in one of the levels that will shoot you with airsoft pistols, which is something you only find out after you shoot them. I think it's like an elaborate suicide by cop joke. I really don't know. This game is insane. And I feel like a lot of people feel that way about the $40 price tag. I don't. I bought it for 35, so I'm basically a king compared to anybody who bought it at that ridiculous price tag. All jokes aside, I do think art like this is worth supporting. Consumer Soft Products consistently pushes the bar with their esoteric and irreverent releases, in my opinion. I do think you need to be absolutely aware of what you're getting into before you buy Psycho Patrol art, or you're going to absolutely hate it. At this point in time, I kind of see the game as more of an investment as opposed to a finished product, as the game even tells you when you launch it that the game is unfinished, your favorite feature hasn't been added yet, and that your save will probably be wiped by an update at one point. This game doesn't pull any punches, and it doesn't tell you when to dodge. It'll punch you in the mouth and then make fun of you for being so stupid because you got punched in the face. Overall, is Psycho Patrol R worth the price tag? I think if you enjoy immersive sim games like Deus Ex, or if you played Cruelty Squad and want something similar but not the same, I would recommend it. However, if you waited for a few updates for the game to have more content, I don't think I could necessarily blame you either. The developer is pretty open to people pirating his games, so I think that before you buy, you could definitely give it a try, if you know what I'm saying. I think that's definitely valid here. I do think you should support the developer in any way possible if you do enjoy their work. I genuinely think I've developed Stockholm Syndrome for this game after playing it for 10 or 15 hours, so please take my opinion with a grain of salt. I also think I kind of went in not fully realizing how it was going to be a very early access game. I thought it was going to be more finished when it was released, so yeah. I have to cut it a little bit of slack for that, in my opinion, but my bad. Until next time, thank you for watching. Appreciate the support. Appreciate you watching this far. Bye. Thanks for watching.
I couldn't help but notice your pain. My pain, it runs deep. Share it with me.
Share that pain with a nigga, man. Tape ain't no tape without Pac on it for real. You gotta have that boy on your tape, straight up. Play day, what's happening? Polio, Michael Corleone, what's up? Jay Black, what's up?
They'll never take me alive, I'm getting